this type of episode is definitely going to remind people of the original launch of this show because there was actually so many things that happened over this past weekend and these couple days in the sports card world. I think there are like 4 or 5 stories. I forget how many total here, but I'm just going to quickly go through a couple of important things that happened in the sports card world. And then throughout this week, there's a chance that I may touch a little bit more on this, but I do, like I said, I want to kind of focus on the headline here and give a little bit of my thoughts. But there's honestly so many stories. I'm going to try and get through all of them. So, first, this is also late breaking news here as we are kind of starting the show. Soto is going to the Mets, and I feel like it was always the Mets. The Red Sox, unfortunately, there was that insider that kind of maybe got some misinfo from somebody. So that guy, I think he had some good stories. But either way, so Soto going to the Mets. I don't know. Like I said, probably feels like he was always going to the Mets. The crazy part about Soto is that his like one of one basically doesn't exist. Um, PSA changed the certification number because they bought the card back, and you haven't heard the story. It's a pretty wild one. It was graded by Beckett, then they cracked it and from Beckett, sent it over to PSA, cleaned the auto, like cleared off part of the auto at the end of the J and his name, and then got it regraded by PSA and got like a pretty good grade. But then PSA realized they messed up and then they bought it back. So if you look up that certification number, the card technically exists, but it's just in an altered autograph slab now. So that's again, that's I think I have a story going up on SI soon about that kind of. So make sure to keep an eye out for that. We had a we had a one of one, the National Treasures non-autographed RPA. Well, because this is a Panini blockchain card. It sold for over $100,000. I believe what I saw was no, here it is. Sells for $146,000. In whatever the currency. I don't know what currency they're using on the actual the blockchain, like if it's cash or if it's like Ethereum or Bitcoin. But first appearance for Wembenyama and National Treasure card, first animated National Treasure card, first appearance with first animated logo man, highest Panini blockchain card on Crypto Slam. Sells for $146,000. Um, yeah, I mean, I still think blockchain and NFT technology is going to be used in the future. And sports cards potentially may be in this usage because it's clear that people want to buy these cards. Like as much as like maybe within the sports card world, we want to think that NFTs and digital cards don't matter. People are out here still spending $146,000 on a card. So that's an interesting headline there. Messi wins the MLS Player of the Year in his first full season here in America. Wins the MLS MVP, which I he's definitely the best player, and obviously it's not really close. I think with the MLS, unfortunately, because I think, like I've said in other episodes, the MLS is really like a stomping ground for like players to go other places. So like as soon as a player gets good in the MLS, they go to another team where Messi comes here. So he's doing the opposite, which I mean, again, phenomenal move to bring him in here. PSA also announced that they're going to be eBay or basically PSA's population report is going to be incorporated into graded listings on the app. So you'll be able to check the like pop reports. And I don't know if there's pricing and no, not pricing, but there is the pop report you're able to check all within the eBay app. Again, the more integration of technology we can do can only make the sports card market healthier because I feel like I think I've kind of talked about this. Like I feel like back in the day, you weren't able to get this info so easily. So like there's got to be people who were buying or selling that didn't really have all the full information. So the more information, the better these sales are going to be for for consumers, in my opinion. Not as much dealers maybe because now they kind of have to integrate this. They have to integrate the data or they have to integrate the prices into their prices. They can't just say that they're going to charge something this and based off of some other thing. Now people can just go to eBay. So that's a phenomenal addition to eBay. Just integration within the app. The sealed case of the 1979 O-Pee-Chee sold through Heritage Auctions for 2.52 million dollars. So $1.2 million less than the 3.7 that it sold back in February. I think if you heard me talk about this maybe, I don't know, 2-3 weeks ago, the apparently the person didn't that bought the case didn't uh didn't pay, and they did all their checks and all of these things. So it's a really unfortunate story because it was really cool that this case sold. Now it still sells for 2.5. So in theory, I think it's selling for 2.5 is still a really good number. Obviously, it's insane to say that $2.5 million wouldn't be a good number for something like this. But I think the fact that somebody were, I think the 2.7, looking at that number now, or the 3.7, sorry, unfortunately, I think maybe that person probably overspent because they assumed they were just going to get it, and then when they didn't have the money because they couldn't like uh get the money, because I think from what I was reading in certain reports was that they were trying to, the person who bought the case was trying to already sell it before they paid for it. So he was apparently the people were already trying to sell it for 4 or something like that, and I think realistically it was probably that was their plan all along, and they, I don't know. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I don't know if there's be lawsuits or something like that, but still 2.5 good for this case. I think all things considered, because I mean, if we had seen it go for under a million, that would have been, ooh, that would have been kind of not so good. But the 2.5 still obviously a record for a sealed case of sports cards, I believe, or at least of hockey cards. Maybe not of all sports cards. The 2000 or the MLS debut patches are going to be in packs in 2020 or 2024 Topps Chrome MLS. That was something that I noticed like a couple months ago, probably when I saw like Luis Suarez. He made his debut and he had the debut patches. Now I think the MLS potentially has gold on their hands here with these cards, because, and I think, but I think the other thing is they need to make sure they do this properly, because when you have players like in the soccer world, if you have a player like Luis Suarez, or Kevin De Bruyne is another player who's been kind of rumored to come here. People have rumored Neymar might come here. When you have the opportunity to give them, because within soccer, the MLB debut patches are, sure, they're for rookies, but they're also for Luis Suarez, who is like a veteran soccer player who is coming here and playing in his first MLS game. So you potentially could have a Neymar debut patch for MLS, like within some Topps product if you were to come here, or like any of the big names that I think will continue to come to the MLS. You're going to have debut patches for them for the MLS product. So if they think that the if I think the the news coverage that they got for the Paul Skeens 1 of 1, I think, I don't know if it would be as big, but to be able to get like hypothetically, if they get one of these crazy players and he gets a debut patch card, that would be phenomenal, and that would be a very interesting addition to what I think Topps has with this idea of. And I don't know how they are going to be able to integrate giving. Like, I think that they're just going to expand the patch concept realistically. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're going to have to do like all-star patches or playoff patches or something, but there's no way that they don't extend this based on kind of how successful the launch of it was really. We have a new MLB prospect number 1, Ethan Holiday. This is something I had heard a couple weeks ago, but when I was looking for it, I didn't see it. But he is now the number 1 prospect. We have another, that's if you're wondering, that is Jackson Holiday's brother. Uh Jackson Holiday, and yeah, that's his brother. So that's gonna be a um big deal here. I don't know when he probably ends up being in Bowman baseball if he's not in Bowman draft potentially. Actually, maybe he's not. He might not be drafted yet. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't. Either way, he is the new number 1 prospect based on, I think, MLB pipeline. They compared, Tops did, because there was they were comparing some of the Bowman sales, and they just put out this interesting graphic that the highest card for Clayton Kershaw and Paul Skeens is only $1 apart. It's 123,200 221 for Clayton Kershaw, a red Bowman auto, and then Paul Skeens one of one superfractor sold for 123 220. So, like I said, $1 less there. And the there was a Lewis Hamilton card that sold, I believe it was through Heritage. That sold for um it says it sold for a million plus. Topps tweeted this out, breaking his own $900,000 record. So he has a new record for a card. And then I think potentially one of the cooler cards we're ever going to see, just history wise, is there was a 1982 Wrestling Stars Hulk Hogan PSA 9 that sold for $132,000, making this the most expensive wrestling card of all time. I think wrestling the wrestling fandom and wrestling cards feels like there hasn't been enough of a combination, but I feel like that when that happens, some of these, I bet you we see like this type of card sells for the millions in a few years, if wrestling fans come into sports cards. That's a big if, and I don't know I don't know if they will or not necessarily. But I think if there was some sort of like with them going to Netflix, and I don't know, maybe Michael Rubin could get in there or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what they would do. But the Hulk Hogan PSA 9, I mean, this is one of probably the most important wrestling cards of all time. I believe there was a one of one Rock Prism card that used to be the highest sale. I believe that was in the 120 range. Like a Prism Rock. I don't know if it was a PSA 10 or a PSA 9, but I know it's sold. And then this one now, it just a week ago, it was still in second. I believe that it just reached 100K, and it was in second. And people suspected this was going to break the record, and now it obviously has. And like I said, it's one of the nicest wrestling cards we really have. So I don't know. This is if there's a PSA 10, like that one could probably reach a million realistically, just based on like a PSA 9 in this condition selling for the 132. But it's a historic card that I think maybe people in pop culture in sports cards, I think maybe underrate. But if there's ever a pop culture moment for cards within wrestling, this is a crazy one. And like I said, this is I don't know how many news. I probably covered 7 or 8 news stories on here. So some of the episodes might be a little bit of a deeper dive into some of these things. But if there's this much news that happens this upcoming week, this might be the only time I talk about these stories. So just be prepared if we get farther in the week and there's other stories to talk about. I may not cover these ones, but the plan is to take a little bit of a deeper dive into a couple of the different stories. If there isn't any other breaking news that happens. Not only were there a lot of news stories over this past weekend, there were 2 auctions, one through Heritage and then one through Golden, that had some pretty big cards selling. I'm going to wait until I can get a final number on the Golden sales before I talk about that. So I'll probably be talking about that on tomorrow's episode, most likely. On today's episode, what I want to talk about is there is a new partnership within the sports card world. Tons of, I mean, it's been actually pretty interesting. I'm not sure if like all the companies are trying to get all their news and features rolled out before the holidays, maybe. And that's why we've seen so much news in this past like couple weeks or past like weekend, really. Maybe not even a couple weeks, that past weekend. Because ComC is now going to be partnering with SGC. And in their tweet, they said the ComC SGC partnership is officially underway. As of today, ComC customers are only a click away from grading their cards with SGC through our effortless and stress-free process. The ComC grading team is ready to provide an incredible service to our customers and help add more graded cards to your collection and to the ComC marketplace. Now, maybe sometimes I think these things, but then I'm just like, well, no, that can't be fully true. Like, I was gonna say ComC might be one of the more underrated sports card companies, I think, in the industry to right now. But I mean, they may not even be underrated. I mean, they might be properly rated, like in terms of like, I think that they're one of the best. And it feels like a lot of people are posting their um similar to, and actually this is an interesting concept that I kind of just thought of. So people that gamble, they post their winning tickets on social media. That's similar to what is going on in sports cards potentially. Like, and I don't know if there's a way to like integrate the design function of like a sale or something like that into some sort of platform similar to like posting your ticket from betting. But so, like on social media, I see a lot of people posting about ComC, and that might actually be them like retweeting now that I'm saying that out loud potentially. But I think ComC has really they've really stuck to what they're good at, and they haven't deviated their plan, or they haven't really deviated from doing what doing what I think that they're best at, which is basically just owning a marketplace. Now, does the marketplace look super flashy? No, it doesn't really at all. I don't think they've ever updated the design of the marketplace, but I think that they have all the important features within that marketplace where the added design of it, sure, it would look nicer, but I don't think that would change really. I don't think it would change necessarily the user experience. Like, because I think if you are buying and selling in a vault, and I think that ComC was way ahead of their time. They were one of the first sites really doing this, and now basically every big sports card company has a vault. eBay, collectors, PSA, Fanatics, Golden, they all have vaults. But if you really think about it, ComC was the first one to do that. They were the first company to really sit there and say, if you want to buy and sell cards, you don't have to get the card shipped to you. And for me, that's actually one of the first companies that I got into when I got into cards, because first of all, it was an easy way to just like deposit 20 bucks and then trying buying and selling cards on their platform. Where if you're trying to buy and sell on eBay, there are like a 10 more steps that you have to do. You have to get the card shipped to you. You have to buy the shipping. You have to buy the stuff to ship cards. You have to go to the post office. You got to go to places and buy all these things. So, and granted, you don't necessarily have to go to the post office. I'm sure there's services that'll pick the things up, but that's not the point. ComC was really the first company that I can think of. There was one other company called The Pit, I believe, which I'm not 100% sure. I think that they're still running, because I think I still follow them on social media. But those two companies really were two of the first vaulting concepts. So the fact that they are integrating, and the fact that they're adding to the service without taking away from what they already have, which I feel like in nowadays technology, that's sort of what ends up happening. Like when features get added, other things get changed, and in most cases, I would say, um, when features and stuff get added, there ends up being changes and things become different, and they aren't as maybe as good. Where I think what ComC has done is they've added an app, they've added this partnership with SGC, where now you can just get your cards graded directly through the service, which then I'm assuming you then just get them back into your ComC vault, if I had to guess. Which again, the concept of like a betting winning ticket slip is very interesting to me. And I don't know how a company could really, like a grading company maybe could do this, where they design your grades or something. I don't know exactly what they would do. But the fact that now you can just have these cards, and you can buy, grade, and sell really without having to get the cards shipped to you whatsoever nowadays is, I don't know if I want to say is how I envision sports cards would be in the future when I was first getting into it. But I got back into sports cards because I was playing video games. I was playing MLB The Show, and you could buy and sell like the virtual cards for like the virtual coins, which in the game you could use the cards to play the games, um, obviously. But in my head, I was like, well, there's got to be, if I can do this on the computer with virtual cards, there's got to be a way to do this in real life with regular cards. And then I found ComC and I was like, oh, this is like exactly what I was looking for when it came to like the buying and selling. Now, obviously, the buying and selling on the video game is much quicker and you're not using real money. But I don't know. I mean, if you are a grinder on ComC, I'm sure there's probably there's good opportunities. There's got to be. I mean, I bought cards, which for the most part, I've used ComC to prospect a little bit. I've used it to buy cards that I can't really find other places, or find them in bulk. Basically, like there were some Call of Duty cards that I was trying to buy, and they had them in bulk where you can just buy. Like if you are trying to, actually, this is a perfect example. If you're trying to buy all of, if you were trying to buy all of the same card, multiple versions of it with ComC, that's another feature that I think is really great for them. You can buy from different sellers and it just all goes into your vault and those sellers get paid out. Like I was trying to buy all of a certain player from a Call of Duty set, and I bought three or four different cards from three or four different people, and but it didn't, like, it was just seamless. It just didn't. There wasn't like you have to go in, you have to pay the certain person, you gotta do it a bunch of different ways. You can just pay, and then ComC pays those people out. So, like I said, I think it is great for ComC that they're getting into this sort of thing. I am actually very surprised that they are not a company that is on any type of like radar to be sold, because like I said, it just feels like they have the most extensive vault in all of sports cards, and it really just could be that like they don't want to sell. Like I think that's definitely a possibility here where they don't really want to change what they're doing. Like if the owner and the people on the board, like they are making enough money, they don't have to sell. Like that's good, I think, for sports cards, and I think that's good because whoever is running the logistics at ComC, I think, is doing a pretty good job and actually they have a pretty good finger on the pulse of what's actually good within sports cards. And, unfortunately, we have seen places like Starstock, like they were a competitor and a rival to ComC for a little bit, but because they decided they wanted to go in a different direction with their business model, unfortunately, things didn't really work out for them. But I think that they were probably the closest one that had an opportunity to really change that landscape early on. And, nowadays, like I said, the vault concept is not, um, it's very common within the industry. So ComC isn't necessarily innovating anything, but I do hope that in whatever 10, 15 years from now, 20 years from now, we can and we do look back at ComC in the light of like they were kind of innovators, and whether we liked what they were doing or not, they really shaped how I thought the industry could be. And in my opinion, I think they kind of have shaped a lot of the industry when it comes to the like vault buying and selling technology. I was going to start out this episode by putting a disclaimer to say that I was going to complain about a little bit. There was a couple things that I have complaints about. Um and I don't know. I think the more there was a couple other things actually that I'm going to complain. So just get ready for this. I don't typically do it that often. I don't know, or maybe I do. Maybe I just don't realize that I'm doing it. But either way, okay. So first, Whatnot has been doing these advertisements on YouTube, and I don't know if anybody else gets targeted with these advertisements, but they're like, oh, we're going to the card store to look for a thing, and if we can't find it, we go to Whatnot. It's like bu- that's that's not correct. Like it just there was quite some time on TikTok and I guess YouTube maybe, but like mainly TikTok, where I just saw people like doing the thing where it's like they go to the store and they buy the pack and then they say that they spent however much and then they try and make their money back, but like they're putting like these unrealistic numbers on cards that shouldn't be that way. So it's like when I see sports cards being marketed in a certain way, it's annoying to me. And it's annoying because I think the marketing is deceptive and I think is tricking people. And I don't want to say breaking is necessarily all of that within marketing, but I do think that there is Unfortunately, the way that breaking is marketed is like, oh, look at all these crazy cards that got pulled on stream. And it's like, but if you were to join any of these breaks or you were to open any boxes for yourself, the chances that you're getting some of these cards is, in my opinion, fairly low. And I don't even think really it's in my opinion. I think statistically it's going to be low because of how much of this product there is. So there's these commercials on whatnot, like I said, that are or like one of the other ads that I got that was like it was something like we're gonna see how many cards we can buy with $100 on whatnot. It's like, what do you mean how many cards you can buy? What do you mean? Like what do you like that is like what do you mean how many cards you can buy with $100? Like you could buy unlimited amounts of cards with $100. It's just a weird way to market it. I don't know. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe it's not the whatnot doing this. Maybe they're having creators create these ads for them, and then they're not look, I don't know, whatever. I just think it's a deceptive way to market whatnot. Like that's not what whatnot is. I thought I guess maybe it is individual auctions on cards potentially, but it's like if you're looking for a card, you're not going to whatnot to find the card. Like whatever. Okay, so then number two, and this is actually a pretty big deal, I think, in my opinion. Okay, the Disney 100 Topps Chrome cards. They have the acetate autographs that are not real autographs that I keep seeing. Like Disney or no, Topps UK posted, and I tweeted about this. By this at this point, if you're listening to the episode, you've probably seen the tweet that I put out, or maybe not, whatever. But I put out a screenshot from a Topps UK Instagram post promoting that somebody did a break and they pulled a dual auto. And it's like, why are they allowed to say that they're autographs? Why are they allowed? Why is Topps allowed to promote these cards as autos? That feels like it's just deception. Like because they're just not autographs. They're just not because in an industry where autographs are so important, where autographs really are running the industry. Like most products, the autograph is the card that you want to pull from a box. That these Disney 100 cards don't have real autographs, but they're being promoted as if they're real autographs. And it's just annoying because then you go to eBay, every eBay listing is just auto, dual auto. And it's just like, how many people have just lost, especially because people are, if you look at some of the sold listings, it's not like these are selling for a couple dollars. Like some of these cards are selling for like upwards of $1,000. Like these cards, like, and if you don't know that they're not autographs, like if you are just looking for a card and you're perusing eBay and you see this autograph and you're like, oh, cool, it's an autograph from whoever, because this was a Mickey and it was a Mickey and a Minnie Mouse, which is so ridiculous to complain about Disney cards, but like the autographs were so intricate and so like no, obviously no one signed these cards. They're just printed on. But again, Topps UK is posting, oh, how much, what a great card dual auto this is. Actually, let me just pull up the screenshot that I have so I can exactly read what they said about this card. They said, is this the best dual auto in Disney 100 Chrome? Which, again, obviously it's not because it wasn't a one of one or it wasn't like it was a numbered to 200 or whatever. It was one of the black autos in quotations. And so it's obviously it's not, first of all, like that. It is annoying to me that Topps would do that because then, like I said, you go to eBay and every eBay listing, none of them say that they're not real autographs. All of them just say autograph. Like, so eBay, this needs to be something on eBay's side too, that they need to step in and be like, hey, you need to be able to categorize these cards. If you're selling these cards, you can't put autograph in the listing because it's not an autograph. And it's so annoying. So essentially, I was going to complain about those two things and then get into a topic, but then I got into, again, Topps has another product that they're coming out with 2023, 2024 rookies. And it's like, there's just no rules. And it's annoying that there just doesn't seem to be any rules for anything nowadays. Like, why is Topps allowed, and this is almost unless Topps wants to start coming out with basketball rookies the year after, which I think that's fine. Like, I actually think that's a good idea because I think people aren't going to lose as much money when some rookie doesn't pan out in his first year and he is, he's a Mac Jones or a Zion Williamson, and people aren't spending these crazy dollars on these cards, which again, I think if eBay, if they were to step in and say, no one can sell cards of a new product until like a month after the release or something where there's some sort of rule. But again, the whole point of me complaining here is that there's just no rules. And anybody can say whatever they want, anybody can do whatever they want, anybody can come in and do whatever they want in the sports card world, and no one seems to care. Like, it's insane to me that like they're and it's annoying to me because I feel like I have tried to not do things the correct way or the right way, because I don't think that there's a correct or right way. I think it's all subjective. But I think integrity wise, I've tried so hard, in my opinion, to give out information that I think is correct. And I think also one thing that I just remembered, I do need to make an update on Monday's episode. Evan Holiday is the number one draft prospect, not the MLB number one prospect from Pipeline. So that was one thing that I want to make a correction on. And I try to make sure if I find out information that I need to correct, that I make the correct information. But it's like, but something like that is not like, I'm not purposely deceiving people by doing anything like that, by saying something that I'm just incorrect about. After years and years and years of doing podcasting and making content, it's like I've tried so hard to give people the correct information and help people learn things within the industry. And then it's just like, but then it just is like, there's just no rules. There's just no rules from Tops. There's no rules from anybody. Anybody can come in and just do whatever they want. Every other day, there's a whatnot streamer that's scamming somebody by pulling the cards off the screen or like not shipping out cards or whatever. So it's just like, maybe I'm just venting a little bit, but still, it's like, at what point is Tops just like saying there's no rules, we're just going to do whatever we want? And it's like, it's frustrating to try and continue to promote things in a positive way when I get frustrated that it just seems like the companies don't really care about any rules or anything that has been built over these past couple of years. And I'm not even saying over decades. I'm talking about like the past 5 years, 10 years, actually 5, because since COVID, things have just completely changed. So like the fact that people can still come into the industry and just seems like they can just do whatever they want is annoying to me. And I don't think I don't think it's going to change anything. I don't think complaining on a podcast is going to change anything. But I hope that maybe somebody looks at this from Tops and it says, "Oh, okay, yeah, then maybe we shouldn't." Because again, within Tops, I would imagine that all of these big products have their own teams. So like the Disney 100 Tops Chrome team is probably different than the team that's putting together the whatever Bowman draft or this basket or whatever, this Tops midnight basketball that's like 2023-24. It's like each of these teams are just doing whatever they want, and maybe that's a problem for Tops here, where they grew so significantly and and I'm there's no overseer of anything really within the sports card world, so anybody can do whatever they want. So it's like people just are doing it, like, and you know I sleep fine at night knowing that I'm trying to do this the correct way and trying to give people information from a news perspective and not, not deceive people into telling them to buy a card when I own it and stuff along those lines, or to do like tell them to buy a product when it's like I have a bunch of it or something, anything. I mean, I just find it as annoying to me that can happen within the industry. And will it ever change? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But I think all I can do is really come out with the podcast every day and do what I can to do research and learn as much as I can. So that way, if people hopefully are listening to this podcast, they know that they're going to at least get pretty much the correct information. Like, sure, there's times where I'm wrong, but like overall, I feel like continuing to go this route is how I want to do it. But it's just annoying to me when I see the things within the industry, and like these are not things that people report on all the time. So it's like I see these small things and I'm like, well, that could be an issue for consumers. But and it's maybe a tops thing, maybe it's an industry thing. At this point, I don't really know. Now, I don't want to sit here and say I told you so, or that I knew that something like this could happen. But over the weekend, a Caitlin Clark one of one select autograph, which is a prism autograph, or I mean a sticker autograph, not a prism autograph. Select one of one sticker autograph, Caitlin Clark. I believe it's a 1010 on the auto and the grade from PSA. Sold for $234,000, which that's obviously the highest price for a WNBA card. And I was wondering when I don't know. I was wondering if I was even going to bring this topic up, if I'm going to be completely honest, because I have been seeing people talk about Caitlin Clark's cards and the level of stardom that she has the in the sports world right now, which I believe that she was also just named the Times Athlete of the Year, which is like phenomenal and well deserved, and I think maybe the most obvious pick. Uh, and I've been seeing people talk about this on Twitter, and I've seen people make videos about it. Is that like Caitlin Clark is like her cards are actually very underrated, and I don't. I hate coming on here and saying that specific cards or specific players are underrated, but I think the reasoning for Caitlin Clark's cards being underrated, and this is what the narrative is basically online that I've seen and that I agree with, is that there just aren't like that many of them. Like, although there has definitely been I don't even know like what amount X, like, because if you look at WNBA cards, for example, 2018 is really when they kind of were first getting back into it. And I believe that there was like a Donruss product. And I believe that's Asia Wilson's first card. I don't know if it's her rookie year. I forget off the top of my head, but I know that's her first card. Who Asia Wilson right now is like she was the MVP. She's like probably the best player in the league. Uh, then you had a couple years where there weren't really cards, and then Sabrina Ionescu, who also just won the WNBA championship, which I think is massive. She had cards in 2020 Prism. They brought back Prism in 2020, which I still have two. Interestingly enough, I have two Fanatics exclusive boxes that I've been holding on to. I'm thinking I might either rip them or sell them at some point. I think that they're in the long term, I think it's an important box because it's not just like a regular blaster. It actually was a Fanatics exclusive blaster that came out before Fanatics was really getting into cards here. And if we're comparing year over year, yes, there has been a drastic increase in the amount of WNBA cards from last year until this year. You know, of the Aaliyah Boston draft class, which is also one of Caitlin Clark's teammates. And the level of stardom, I think, with Caitlin Clark, I think is what may be underrated within sports cards because, whether we like it or not, unfortunately, there will be a group of people who just won't get into the WNBA. Like, no matter how popular it gets, no matter what no and the crazy thing is like you always see the narrative. It's like, oh well, they're losing money or something like that. I don't know the exact statistics around that, but I know that like because they're partnered with the NBA, there's some sort of revenue thing where it's like the players are getting more money than they're making or something like that. Like I said, I don't know the exact statistics there, but it's like unfortunately, there are just people online who are not going to like women's sports. And there's really no changing their mind. I think there is a group of collectors and there are a group of people who could get into women's sports, could get into WNBA, could get into like the NWSL, which is the women's soccer league. There's also like a women's hockey league that just recently started. There is a women's, I believe, the PLL, which is the Professional Lacrosse League. They started a female professional lacrosse league, and there are teams going to be all over the country. And I just think, I think the level of play is maybe what people think is not good, but it's like because people will make their judgments based on one clip, for example. Like, I saw a lot of people talking about like they were doing a bunch of crying emojis when there was like it was in game 5 of the WNBA finals. There was a sequence where there was a bunch of turnovers and a bunch of bad shots, and it's like, have you ever watched any have you ever watched basketball, like for real? Like have you ever, like, these people who make their whole judgment based off of one clip are really like, again, I've said this in the past. Those types of people need to go outside and touch some grass and interact with some people, because I think that there is also a large section of people who just don't interact with people outside of who they interact with online. They don't go outside. They don't talk to people. They talk to people online who all share the same opinions as them. So the thought that the WNBA is going to continue to become is going to continue to become popular is a fact. We have Paige Beckers, who's going to be the number one pick, who, like I've said on multiple different podcasts, would have been as big as Caitlin Clark if she had not gotten hurt. Maybe would have gone. Maybe in the draft it would have been her and Paige Beckers and Caitlin Clark would have gone 1 and 2, and we would have saw some like crazy rookie battle. But Paige Beckers, because she got hurt, and then because of the COVID year, she had an extra year of eligibility. There's also Juju Watkins, who plays for USC, who was a freshman last year. So she has this year as a sophomore, and then next year as a junior, which I believe you have to be 21 to register for the WNBA draft, or to be in the WNBA draft. So I would hope that they would change that rule to just like how they have it in the NBA with 1 year. That would be great. I think that would be a good change there. I don't think getting rid of it in total would be a good idea, but allowing players to go professional after 1 year, I think would be good. And I think when you play in college for that long, you're just going to develop your game much probably better than you would if you were to go professional. So I don't know, maybe the change wouldn't be that great. But there is a pipeline of players who are going to continue to raise the league's popularity. And although the amount of WNBA cards, like I said at the beginning of the episode, has increased substantially, the amount of that product is still extremely low. Like if you look at like all of the cards that are eventually going to be graded, like there will be, I think, a year where we jump from like how when Jason Tatum in 2017 Prism to Luca in 2018, where like Jason Tatum has like 5 or 6,000 PSA 10s, and then Luca has like 20,000 PSA 10s. So there will be probably a year where it potentially jumps the shark, and we potentially the 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 level of interest and the amount of products do end up evening out. But we have right now, there's an opportunity where we have a player in the league who is a superstar and is a rising star within the sports community, not even just within the WNBA, not even just within basketball, within the sports within the United States. Maybe not globally. I guess I don't want to comment on globally, but I think within the United States, Clark's influence is going to be substantial. And the amount of cards that she has as a rookie, I don't think is a lot of people are saying, and I've seen people tweeting about this and talking about it. And again, I see the people that argue against it, but it's like, these are just people that I don't think realize how big Caitlin Clark really is. The amount of her supply, I think, out no, the amount of her demand, I think, for her cards is going to vastly outweigh the supply in the longevity of her career. Sure, she might go through some years where she's going to have ups and downs, but I think we're going to look back at the 2023, 2024. No, I guess that would be just 2024 because their whole season happens within the 1 year. So we're going to look back at the 2024 WNBA products, and I also think we're going to see there are a bunch of other great players that are in that product as well. You know, Angel Reese, Cameron Brink is also in that product. Camilla Cardozo, I believe is her name, or Cardoza. I forget which way it's pronounced. But she's also phenomenal. And she also, I believe, plays on Chicago with Angel Reese. So like there are 4 players that are stars. I think they're rookie. They're going to be going into their second year. I think, unfortunately, Brink is coming off an ACL injury, so she's going to probably have to wait a little bit. I don't know. Kate Martin is another player who played with Caitlin Clark at Iowa. So there are players who are going to cater an audience that within the sports card community we should be embracing. And it's one of the things I don't really understand when I feel like when newer groups of people try to come into sports cards, there's almost a bit of condescending tone that people use when they're explaining cards or they're explaining the industry. So there are going to be new collectors that come in, and especially from a female perspective, like this is going to be a phenomenal thing for young kids or young girls or just even teenagers or people who are collectors, just anybody who's looking to collect. It's going to be such a phenomenal avenue for them to get in to look at these players. And I think that I wish that we would embrace it a little bit more. I mean, I think on this podcast, and going back all the way to like the national when I was 2 years ago when I was on stage talking about how like Angel Reese was at the national, like that was really cool. So I think I tried to do a good job at that type of stuff, like making sure that to include and be inclusive to a new audience of people within sports cards. And a new, tons of new people are going to come in, and I just think that we're still going to see more people coming in, and what we're going to see people coming in, we're going to see people leave. But I think right now, what we are seeing is that Caitlin Clark is a superstar, and in my opinion, I think that the amount of her popularity is going to highly outweigh the supply of how many cards that she actually has. The college football playoffs have been locked in. That was obviously Sunday, I believe. Haven't really talked about the college football season too much. Really, I don't actually, probably not even really since the beginning of the season. I don't think I've talked about this college football season. But so Saturday, tomorrow, they're going to be announcing the winner of the Heisman. Now, it's I think based on the odds, it's probably going to be Travis Hunter, just because he has been it really isn't even like because with the NFL, the MVP conversation kind of comes down to like the quarterback is usually the most important position. Now, obviously, there are two quarterbacks. There's Cam Ward from Miami and then Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. But then there's also an Ashton Genty from the running back from Boise State. But Travis Hunter is a good player on both sides of the field. So, like, that's really why I think he probably ends up winning. But Ashton Genty, I don't know. I kind of have a weird feeling like if Travis Hunter doesn't win, it's definitely going to be him. But I think Travis Hunter probably does end up winning. But I think something that I was thinking about with these cards, the Bowman cards. Obviously, I'm a fan. I think one of the interesting pieces that I know, but I don't know necessarily if I'm going to follow it super closely. But is there going to be, because I think within Bowman first with baseball, a lot of people like when the player is like whatever, they're a Yankees player. Jason Dominguez, for example, he's a Yankees prospect, gets his first Bowman in a Yankees uniform, gets up to the pros. Sometimes it feels like collectors like the sequencing, whatever it would be. The from he is a Yankee to he's a Yankee, because I think there's like a trope within Bowman. It's like when a player switches teams, sometimes the Bowman isn't really um it's not viewed as important maybe as like I don't know any of the other cards that they have necessarily. So I wonder if that is going to be the case for college football Bowman cards, because as we've seen with two players in this year's Heisman, it's 2 and 2. So Travis Hunter, last year, I believe he got his first Bowman with Colorado, still plays for Colorado. Genty got his first Bowman this year, actually, and his is obviously on Boise State because he plays for Boise State. But the two quarterbacks, their first Bowmans are on different cards. They're on different teams. Which Dylan Gabriel, for example, this is his like third team that he's played on. So he played on, I think it was Central Florida, and then Oklahoma, and now Oregon. And then Cam Ward played on Washington State and now Miami. So I think ultimately the question really it does end up always usually being like, is the player going to be good? Like, is the player going to be worth what you'd be spending on the cards now if hypothetically you wanted to buy them. And I think it's much different with football because I think if we're talking Bowman, that's the conversation. But with football and basketball, I don't think people really view the Bowman cards the way that they view, or the Bowman football and basketball college cards the way that they view Bowman baseball. I really think it's not even really close, if I'm going to be honest. And I am just looking into the future here with these, or thinking of the future with these cards and what could become of the cards. Now, obviously, if Cam Ward or Dylan Gabriel makes it to the league and they're not good, then yeah, no, it's not obviously going to matter. But that's the same kind of question with any prospect just in general. But the I don't know, and well, also with these college cards, that's just for quarterbacks, probably what you're going to see because sure, like Dylan Gabriel was a good enough player when he played for Central Florida, which is he was in 2022, 2021 or 2022, Bowman. He was a good enough player that he got a card, but then is a Heisman candidate, which I mean, obviously being a Heisman candidate is no, like, that's nothing to shake your stick at. I don't know if I think that's the saying, but he eventually becomes a Heisman candidate, but after playing for two different teams. So with NIL transfer portal, I think we're going to see a lot of that um with players, and I think it or with college players in the future. And I don't know. I guess it's kind of the conversation that I've had a couple times on the show is like what like when is it too soon to give a player a card? Like when is it too soon? Like Panini was signing like junior players in high school to exclusive deals. Now they did that once or twice. I haven't really seen them do that recently, but it's like it's just I don't know, when is it too soon to give a player their first card? And I think it's really I don't know. I mean, I think ultimately that question does come down to if they end up being good in the league. Like, I don't think people are gonna like if Cam Ward, for example, goes on to be like I don't know, like a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, like obviously different play styles, but if he becomes a star like that, I don't think people are really gonna care that his first Bowman is in a Washington State uniform. I think we're seeing obviously such a transition here within college cards that that's also a question that's where I think it would happen if the cards keep becoming popular and once he or Dylan Gabriel or Shador Sanders, but Shador Sanders is not a Heisman, so I'm not going to talk about him necessarily. But those players, if they become good players in the league, I'm just wondering, are people going to care that like the year that he was a Heisman candidate was when he was at Miami, but he doesn't have any Miami cards, which I probably have talked about this. Cam Ward, it's funny. It's a very interesting. Such a big world, but a small world. There's a Cam Ward that played for the Carolina Hurricanes, the goalie. So if you search for Cam Ward, you're going to find the goalie, probably not Cameron Ward from Miami. Kind of interesting. I thought when I was doing some article, I saw that. I thought that was kind of funny. So like or Dylan Gabriel's another good example. Dylan Gabriel's played for three different teams in college. Like, are people going to care that UCF? And I keep saying UCF. It could have been Army. I'm actually not 100% sure which. I just remember the jerseys. Like, I was looking at the card today, and the jerseys were like grayish that I remember UCF wearing. But either way, he played for a team, then goes to Oklahoma, then goes to Oregon. Are people going to care that that first team is but I guess that's almost a totally different conversation because it's like technically the first team of a first Bowman for a college basketball or football player is not going to be the first Bowman of like for baseball, like their first pro uniform card. So I don't know. It's tops. I think introducing a concept that isn't new, and they've been doing this for years now. Obviously, I think this is like the third or fourth installment of Bowman football. They're introducing like are people going to care about Bowman the way they do for other sports? Or how do they capture the Bowman craze and bring that into other sports. And I think that's what we're going to see too with these new patches, if I'm going to be honest, because those new patches hit right away. The debut patches, the popularity of them, all that stuff hit. So I think that they're going to be trying to figure out a couple different things here. Like, how can they take a Bowman and make that a card for a player? Because it's like, if you are Tops or Panini, it's like you want to be the card that everybody says is like, if you want to go buy, like, let's say Ashton Denty makes it to league. If someone says, what is the best card to buy of him? Some people will probably say, oh, whatever team he gets drafted by, it's gonna be his Prism card. But it could also be the Bowman card. And I think Tops is for the first time making that landscape of like, what is the best rookie card for basketball and for football? What's the most popular one that you're going to want to get? Because in baseball, it is Bowman. Now, the pipeline system I've talked about this, it's much different, where the players usually play through the farm system of the team that they signed with, where that farm system that would be the first pro uniform is a college uniform. So I don't know. And I mean, that's not even gonna get into the conversation about what they would do potentially for Bowman baseball, like if they would bring that into the conversation, because they could probably, in theory, like, I don't see, if they were to expand, I think it would be interesting, but it also seems like maybe an area where they don't, maybe because of the things I just talked about, maybe they don't want to go into baseball for Bowman, because it's like they want the first Bowman in Bowman draft or Bowman baseball or Bowman Chrome to be the card that people want to get. They don't want people to get the first Bowman of them at like whatever Florida, or like Paul Skeens if he had one at LSU. Like, they don't want people to think the LSU card should be it. They want, you know, they want the first Bowman, and then they also want obviously those patches. So this Heisman, realistically, like I said, is probably going to be won by Travis Hunter. I think he has been the best player. Not obviously not best player on both sides of the ball, but definitely the most impactful. If you look at some of his stat lines on offense and defense, he's had takeover games that have been very impressive. But if I don't think he's going to win, I think it's probably Genty. But realistically, I don't. I think both of them. I think it's going to be Hunter. And I mean, I'll be interested to see if there's going to be a Tops Now set. I guess I would imagine there should be. And I guess a Panini Instant set. There probably will be too. And that will be, see, this will be one of the first times I think that if both companies make the same card, it would go up head to head, maybe. I guess there are the Panini draft cards, and also the Tops Now draft cards. But I think this would be an interesting one because it's not like it'll be, they both can use, I think they both can use the Colorado branding. So that will be an interesting matchup. Or if maybe they don't even do it. I don't really know. But that's going to be, this weekend is just, it's going to be big, Heisman Trophy, we'll know. For right now, Bowman is the card you want to go with. So those are the ones I would look into if you're looking to buy any of the prospects that are Heisman candidates.